In the quiet farming town of Leongatha, Victoria, southern Australia, life moves at a measured pace. Crops are harvested in crisp air, families gather for Sunday lunches, and local history extends back to early dairying communities. But on July 29, 2023, everything changed. A family lunch, a trusted kitchen, and the most unlikely of poisons, deadly, silent, potent. The result: 3 people dead, 1 survivor. A quiet community forever altered. This is the story of Erin Patterson, no longer just a neighbor. Not just a mother, a former air traffic controller, a soft-voiced friend, an unlikely criminal. Her name became synonymous with betrayal, with grief, with a lunch turned lethal, the Leongatha Mushroom Murders. Born September 30th, 1974, in suburban Adelaide, Erin Trudy Scudder moved with her family to Melbourne's Glen Waverley in the mid-1980s. In 1992, she enrolled at the University of Melbourne, where she studied science and accounting. Graduating in 1995, she later qualified as an air traffic controller, demanding, precise, responsible work she carried out in Melbourne's control towers for several years. In 2003, she left that role and, by 2005, joined the RSPCA, driven by compassion for animals, where she handled intake and welfare cases with quiet commitment. In 2007, Erin inherited a modest property and modest fortune from her grandmother, enabling a new chapter of her life. That same year, she married Simon Patterson, a middle school teacher from regional Victoria. Sometime in 2008, they had their first child. Their second child followed in 2010. In 2011, the couple moved to Western Australia to run a second-hand bookshop, seeking a slower life. But by 2015, tensions over finances, parenting, and distance precipitated their separation. Erin and Simon amicably agreed to co-parent and divide custody between the bookshop's location and Victoria. Simon's parents, Donald and Gail Patterson, and Gail's sister Heather Wilkinson and husband Ian remained emotionally close, especially to the children, visiting during holidays and receiving regular Sunday dinners. Erin returned to Victoria in 2018, settling again near Simon's family in Leongatha, partly to remain near the children and partly out of nostalgia for the bookshop life. The in-laws believed Erin remained dedicated to the kids and maintained cordial, but strained, relations with her ex-husband. On Saturday, July 29, 2023, Erin invited Don and Gail Patterson and Heather and Ian Wilkinson for lunch at her home. In invitations sent days prior, Erin cited vague health concerns. Specifically, she said she'd had a cancer scare and would appreciate comfort and counsel from family. Simon, sensing instability, declined to attend, remarking later in court that he felt she was setting a trap. None of the guests were aware that Erin had been researching toxic mushrooms for weeks. The meal was classic beef Wellington. To each guest, she served the dish on gray porcelain plates. To herself, an orange plate, a deviation she would later struggle to explain. That evening and overnight, the 4 guests became violently ill, vomiting and suffering acute gastrointestinal distress. Hospital tests, forwarded to the state toxicology lab, confirmed death cap mushroom poisoning, a potent toxin that disables liver function within 48 to 72 hours if untreated. By August 2, 2023, Don and Gail Patterson and Heather Wilkinson had succumbed to liver failure. Ian Wilkinson survived only after receiving an emergency liver transplant. He would remain hospitalized for over a month, under care and memory of the lunch he had shared. Erin reportedly remained asymptomatic at all times, her own plate, and her plate color difference, raising red flags. August 5th, she was questioned by police. Initially, she blamed poor sourcing or cooking error. Investigators scoured multimedia, phone records, pantry inventories, and waste bins that Erin had cleaned. They unearthed searches logged on Erin's devices, terms such as lethal mushrooms, how to kill with mushrooms, poison all-purpose mushroom. Investigators also seized a food dehydrator found at her property. Lab tests detected fungicidal residue consistent with death cap toxins. This, combined with Erin's inconsistent statements, like refusing to disclose why she used separate dinnerware and why she'd hastily disposed of food containers, began to form a narrative of deliberation. In November 2023, prosecutors officially charged Erin Patterson with 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. They alleged intentionality, that Erin laced the meal to kill her in-laws and control whom her children would be raised by. Defense attorneys argued this was an accident. Erin had mistakenly used purchased mushrooms instead of store-bought. But the plate evidence, the dehydrator, and her web history undermined the defense's accidental poisoning claim completely. The trial began in April 2025 in the Supreme Court of Victoria. For weeks, toxicologists explained how amatoxins penetrate the liver, how they defy heat, even how they survive drying. Fellow witnesses testified about Erin's internet searches. Forensic experts demonstrated how death caps can be visually indistinguishable from edible mushrooms. In August, closing arguments painted 2 different pictures. The prosecution portrayed Erin as plotting vengeance, stealing life with silent fungus, while the defense offered a portrait of emotional fragility, an estranged mother who thought she invited comfort, not tragedy. But in July 2025, the jury deliberated and delivered its verdict, guilty on all counts. On September 8, 2025, Justice Christopher Beale sentenced Erin Patterson to life imprisonment, with a minimum non-parole period of 33 years. Judge Beale cited the crime as a calculated act of domestic betrayal, emphasizing that Erin's children had lost grandparents and a mother whom the court now considered dangerous. The sentencing marked one of the first live broadcasts of a Supreme Court in Victoria, an unprecedented step that underscored national interest and the gravity of the case. For the community, healing would take far longer than a trial. Funeral photos featured Dawn and Gail smiling among grandchildren. Heather's laugh was remembered by church friends who said she always greeted everyone with warmth. Ian, physically scarred but alive, spoke of forgiveness and long nights by hospital bedsides. This case triggered public conversation about wild mushroom foraging and food safety. In October 2025, state health bodies issued new educational leaflets, cautioning foragers and chefs alike. Death-cap mushrooms can blend into innocuous-looking meals, and cooking does not remove toxins. Meanwhile, the legal and journalistic communities debated live-broadcasted trials and the ethics of sharing victim stories. Unlike sensational true crime entertainment, the Leongatha case remained tethered to real, living grief. The Patterson family name, once linked to community kindness, became tethered to horror. Erin's children, now effectively orphaned, would grow up without grandparents, growing up under public scrutiny with their mother in prison until she's in her early 80s. From a rural Sunday lunch to global headlines, from a daughter to a defendant, from trust to terror, the Leongatha story is more than a cautionary tale. It is a portrait of how love, resentment, and grief can collide in unforeseeable ways. It is evidence that normalcy can conceal malice, that nurture can hide destruction, and that one carefully cooked meal can end more than a life. It can erase a trust that took decades to build. In Leongatha, families still meet for dinner, but the meals are quieter, plates are chosen more mindfully, conversations are more tender. They moved forward, slowly, vowing never to let tragedy be remembered as myth. Names were kept alive: Dawn, Gail, Heather. And though Erin Patterson's actions cast a long, dark shadow, communities held on to remembrance with acts of love far outlasting outrage. This has been the Leongatha Mushroom Murders, the case of Erin Patterson. May the memory of the victims guide caution in kitchens, compassion in grief, and wisdom in trust.